I'm Liz Forbliss, and this is Currents. Separating fact from fiction, the Vatican publishes its guidelines for proving holy apparitions. Plus, a Brooklyn priest is a celebrity chef for a good cause.
And I think it's a great cause, and anything I can do to help any wounded warrior, I would do.
And it's an afternoon of inclusion for people with disabilities.
Yeah, to celebrate inclusion and to welcome people with varying different degrees of disabilities, just to help them get a sense of, first, that we value them, and that we want them to be more and more part of the life of the church.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. According to Catholic News Service, more than 1,500 visions of Mary, known as Marian apparitions, have been reported around the world. But in the past century, only 9 cases have received official church approval as being worthy of belief, said an expert in Marian apparitions. Now, that determination typically falls to the local bishop of the diocese in which these apparitions are said to have occurred. Now, to help with this formidable task of discerning which apparitions are valid and which claims are false, the Vatican's doctrinal congregation established a set of norms in 1978 to guide the process of discernment and the investigation of reported apparitions and revelations. Rome Reports has more on that.
When it comes to apparitions, how does the church determine if they are in fact genuine? Well, the process is quite complex, so now the Vatican's website lists the norms for understanding the alleged apparitions and revelations. The norms are in a 1978 document that show ways to prove if an apparition is legitimate or not. The document divides both the positive and negative points. Among the positive is the honesty of the person who allegedly saw the apparition, also living an upright life, mental sanity, and the spiritual fruits of the apparition. Under the false category, the document includes doctrinal errors in the message of the alleged apparition. It also lists false apparitions that are used for monetary gain, or those that lead the alleged visionary and his or her followers to commit immoral acts.
Now, here in the U.S., apparitions of Mary at the site of Our Lady of Good Help in Champion, Wisconsin, were deemed worthy of belief. The 2010 pronouncement from Green Bay Bishop David Ricken came after a 2-year investigation by theologians who found no evidence of fraud or heresy. The apparitions were said to have occurred in 1859. Our Lady of Good Help became one of only about a dozen sites worldwide and the first in the United States where apparitions of Mary have been officially validated by the church. Now, the investigations of presumed apparitions are by no means simple. That said, the Vatican recently released its official norms on determining the validity of such matters. I spoke earlier with Monsignor John Strinkowski. He's rector of Cathedral Basilica of St. James and a dogmatic theologian about the origin of these norms and how they're put into practice. Monsignor, what exactly constitutes a valid apparition or revelation as defined by ecclesiastical authority? Now, my goal in asking this is to expel some of the myths.
Well, as you know, the Holy See today made public a document regarding norms, you might say, for discerning whether an authentic apparition has taken place. Now, usually, when we talk about apparitions, we're talking about Marian apparitions. That is to say, the Blessed Mother appearing to an individual or to several people, for example, and conveying a message either once or over a period of time. So the question always, though, is whether or not the claim to have experienced an apparition by the Blessed Virgin Mary, whether that is authentic or not. Mm-hmm. But generally, we're talking about Marian apparitions.
And how do authorities at the Vatican discern the true nature of facts presented in evidence of apparitions? I realize that they are referencing a 1978 document that shows ways to prove that the apparition is legitimate or not. Are you familiar with the document?
Yes, I am. It's a very brief document that was made public today, and it comes from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. And what's interesting is that they describe a process which really would begin on the local level. So before the Holy See would get involved, generally the expectation of the Holy See is that the local bishop would study the claim to have experienced an apparition, and the document offers some criteria. For example, in regard to the content of the apparition, you might say the verbal content, is it in line with the teaching of the church, for example? Also, the moral quality of the person claiming to have an apparition. So there are various criteria by which the local bishop can judge whether or not an apparition has taken place. But it can also be done by the National Conference of Bishops, and then ultimately also by the Holy See.
Monsignor, have there been an increasing number of apparitions to your knowledge?
I would say that probably since the Middle Ages, there have always been such claims, and many of them have proven to be untrue, and so kind of fallen by the wayside. Are there more today than there used to be? That's hard to say. I don't think that we have a precise number, let's say, from centuries ago and today. But obviously today, with mass media being what it is, people, the claim to have experienced an apparition is more easily spread around.
Yes, you're exactly right. The immediacy of getting and parsing of the information, and it's partly this flood of action to information that has really helped determine which apparitions or claims of apparitions are revelations are actually credible, correct?
Right. Now, the process takes time, and of course, as this document points out, today there's such a pressure to have a decision immediately on something, and really the church has always moved slowly on this topic because on the one hand, the church has to discern what are the fruits of this apparition or supposed apparition. Is it bearing good fruit, or is it not? For example, as the document points out, is it being used for commercial purposes? Obviously, then that would rule out a genuine apparition. So the church has to be cautious and slow in determining this.
And Monsignor, in the time that we have left, I've been taking a look at the document this morning, and it divides both the positive and negative points, as you mentioned. And one that I found compelling and would really love your opinion on before we go: how much does the credibility of the person who allegedly saw the apparition come into play?
Oh, I think a great deal. I think if I were to establish a general rule, I think for the most part, the authentic apparitions have been experienced by poor people, by poor children. Think, for example, of St. Bernadette, or think of the children of Fatima. In other words, the grace of the apparition is a manifestation of God's certainly reaching out to the world through the Blessed Virgin Mary, but doing that through children who are humble, who are good, who are innocent, who are docile, who are open to receiving this grace. This would also apply, obviously, to some adults who have experienced apparitions, that same sort of humility, docility, and courage also. Courage, because obviously people are going to be disbelieving at first, but what we see in those who have experienced genuine apparitions is that they were very courageous and persevering, even though people did not believe them.
All right, thank you very much, Monsignor. I'm afraid that is the last word, but a very interesting discussion, and I do appreciate your sharing those examples with us and also sharing your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
And we have more currents ahead. Controversy at yet another Catholic college with abortion rights at the center of it all. We'll have that story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. This is beginning to sound a lot like deja vu. Another Catholic college is honoring a controversial politician. Jesuit-run Fordham University will name a floor of a building currently under construction after the late Congresswoman Geraldine Ferraro. Ferraro's husband and son recently made a donation to the new building, which will serve as a residence hall and a law school. The story was first reported by the Cardinal Newman Society. In 1984, Ferraro, who was Catholic, was the first female vice president presidential candidate on a major party ticket. At that time, then Archbishop John O'Connor said the Congresswoman was misrepresenting Catholic teachings by signing a letter stating that there was a diversity of Catholic opinion on abortion. O'Connor countered by saying there was just one opinion of the church, that abortion is wrong in all circumstances. Ferrara was a New York native who for many years lived in Queens. She died last year after battling cancer. Meanwhile, it looks like Ted Kennedy's widow is welcome at one Catholic college. Victoria Reggie Kennedy is scheduled to address students at Boston College Law School commencement on Friday. The school extended an invitation to Kennedy earlier this month. She had previously been disinvited from another Catholic college in Massachusetts. Anna Maria University rescinded its invitation to Kennedy after the Bishop of Worcester raised concerns about her public support of abortion rights and same-sex marriage. Meanwhile, a priest who was arrested at the University of Notre Dame in 2009 for protesting President Obama's commencement speech there has died. Father Norman Westland, seen here, was 81 years old. He began studying for the priesthood after his wife was killed in a car accident. He was ordained in 1986. Father Westland was arrested numerous times over the years, including at the office of then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, at the 2008 Democratic National Convention in Denver, and at abortion clinics across the country. In 2009, he was one of 88 people arrested at the University of Notre Dame for protesting President Obama's appearance at the school's commencement. Notre Dame received harsh criticism for honoring Obama, a supporter of abortion rights. In other news, a second Catholic college has decided to do away with its student health plans because of the federal contraception mandate. Ave Maria University in Florida has announced that starting this August, the school will no longer offer health insurance plans to its students. In a statement, Ave Maria President Jim Toohey said federal regulations would have forced students to pay a 66% increase in premiums and purchase coverage that includes abortion-inducing drugs. Toohey says most students are covered under their parents' plans, but approximately 15% choose the school's policy. Ave Maria is suing Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius over that mandate. The number of Americans who identify as pro-choice has reached a record low. According to a new Gallup poll, the number of pro-choice Americans is now at 41%, 1 percentage point below the previous low. The survey also showed that a slight majority of Americans, 51%, say they are pro-life. Gallup began asking the question in 1995, with pro-choice Americans holding a wide lead in the mid-90s to a more narrow advantage between 1998 and 2008. According to Gallup, the pro-life position has shown a more significant lead on 2 occasions, in 2009 and in the latest numbers. A new study shows Mitt Romney's Mormonism could be an issue with voters in this year's presidential election. Political scholar John Green, the director of Ray C. Bliss Institute of Applied Politics at the University of Akron, is one of the study's authors. Green tells Religion News Service that the problem is not that Romney is open about his faith, but that his Mormon faith makes many people uneasy. According to the study, concerns about Mormonism back in the 2008 election, quote, dwarfed concerns about the religious backgrounds of Hillary Clinton and Mike Huckabee. The organization Human Rights Watch is calling on Vietnamese authorities to release 4 Catholic activists. The 4 people are accused of distributing pro-democracy flyers. Now, according to Human Rights Watch, the activists had taken part in numerous volunteer activities, including pro-life advocacy, encouraging blood donation, and helping orphans and victims of natural disasters. In March of this year, a Vietnamese court convicted 2 other Catholic activists who were accused of distributing anti-government leaflets. Well, Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens honors a couple of men for their large-scale efforts to help those in need. It was the 2012 Bishop's Humanitarian Awards dinner, which took place Tuesday night at Chelsea Piers in Manhattan.
Tonight we're at Pier 60, Chelsea Piers, and it's our annual Bishop's Humanitarian Dinner, in which the corporate community and so many of our donors come forward to raise money and help support the programs of Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens.
Certainly it's tough times, on a federal, state, and city level, all kinds of retrenchment and dire predictions for the future. But Catholic Charities has not lost its spirit, its animus. In this year alone, we have expanded our ability to deliver Meals on Wheels to isolated seniors in Brooklyn and Queens. We're delivering 2,200 meals a day to folks who have very little contact with the outside world because of their circumstances and their age. We are your presence to them.
The Bishop's Humanitarian Dinner, we're honoring two individuals that have done good humanitarian work, and we do that as a fundraiser for Catholic Charities, which does a lot of humanitarian work. Part of our mission is to make charity real, and the Catholic Charities does that by the many, many programs they run in Brooklyn and Queens for those who are really at the fringes of society sometimes.
I'm really delighted that the Bishop's Humanitarian Award is being given to this next gentleman, Ambassador Yusufu Bamba, who has spent his entire life in the diplomatic service of his country. He currently serves as the permanent representative of Côte d'Ivoire to the United Nations. Ambassador has been really key and integral to restoring democracy to Côte d'Ivoire, and really is so much a part of that country's ability to move forward in peace and prosperity.
It is no easy task, but with the support of everyone here tonight, I know that this important work will continue.
This dinner is very important. Each year the dinner provides us with about $500,000 worth of discretionary dollars. Those are dollars that we can use for initiatives within charities, monies that we can use to support our community and parish programs. Those are programs that we don't receive any outside government monies for. We depend exclusively for donations, and so the dinner is a major part of being able to cover those expenses.
And stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. Coming up, it's a night out to benefit a wounded war veteran.
The support that those of us feel in the active duty force from America is really important.
Mario Batali, Bobby Flay, Emerald Lagasse, Wolfgang Puck. In today's world, chefs are not only behind the scenes, they're in front of the camera. And here at NET, we have our very own celebrity chef, who also happens to be a priest of the Brooklyn Diocese. Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello is the co-host of NET's restaurant show, Breaking Bread, and just one of the stars out last night for a good cause. The charitable work is being done through the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation. The organization is named after an off-duty New York City firefighter who ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel with his gear to assist at the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. His remains were never recovered. Now, one of the latest goals of the foundation that bears his name, building a new home for another hero. Iraq war veteran Brian Dilberian lost his left arm and both of his legs in a bomb explosion last year during his tour of duty. On Monday night, Hunter's Steak and Ale House in Bay Ridge hosted a fundraiser, part of a larger effort to get that new home built.
We stand on the shoulders of the veterans. Whether you are businessmen, you are professionals, doctors, politicians, elected officials, we all stand on the shoulders of the veteran because they are heroes.
Events like this represent Americans, New York City citizens supporting our veterans. And the support that those of us feel in the active duty force from America is really important.
Tonight is just the beginning of many fundraisers that will be happening throughout Brooklyn and New York City. Bay Ridge is no better community than Bay Ridge. The people are so tight. The families have been, many families have been around here forever, and so when one of their own is in need, and Brian is a homegrown Brooklyn hero, they rally together.
Monsignor Jamie, before he became His Excellency, was a big-time chef. Without hesitation, His Excellency came to the plate. He's done it all. Not only did he do all the work, he donated all the food and gave a donation besides. How much does it cost to buy a piece of property in Brooklyn and build a house from scratch, a custom-built smart house from scratch.
They asked me to do this. I said, of course. I mean, the cause is there's no question I would, give my time to do it, and I think it's a great cause, and anything I can do to help any wounded warrior, I would do.
He won't be able to do much in the chair, and just to have the space to do what he has to do. I think right now, Brian can never take a shower standing up. They don't have prosthetics that are water resistant yet. So just to have a shower stall or something where he can get into it comfortably, I think will be an amazing thing.
I was able to get Chase Manhattan Bank to be a sponsor of this event, which is also a big help also. I told someone that works at Chase, because I have an affiliation with them, they help the diocese and Futures in Education and the Catholic Foundation of Brooklyn and Queens. I told them what I was doing. They said, we're going to help you at the house. So I said, great.
People are paying attention to what veterans have done, what they've sacrificed for, and that, anything, any kind of support is what we value and what we want to support.
A member of our community, deserves to be taken care of right, so I think that it's appropriate that we're all together. It's actually, imperative that we do this for every veteran that comes back wounded.
We received Hunter's Steakhouse. It gave us the place for free with staff, beer, wine, soda for free, everything included. Monsignor Jimmy Gigantinello, not only the chef, he gave all the food and a donation besides. So anything we took in tonight went towards the project.
We are so proud of our Monsignor Jamie. Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. When we return, Queens Parish hosts an afternoon for disabled Catholics.
We tend to withdraw because we don't want to be different. We don't want to be treated differently, but we want to be accepted like everyone else.
Finally tonight, one of the many things that the Brooklyn Diocese is known for is diversity. Through the years, the Diocese Migration Office has served immigrants from at least 167 countries. But that diversity is not only measured in terms of national origin. Churches throughout the diocese have made it a point to welcome disabled Catholics. And this past weekend at St. Nicholas of Tullantine Church in Jamaica, Queens, hosted an afternoon of inclusion for the disabled. It included Mass, confession, and much more.
We are all limited in some way. We're limited in our relationship with God. We're limited in our relationship with other people. How do we accept those limitations and go beyond them? How do we use the gifts we have to help others?
We're hosting an event really on inclusion, to celebrate inclusion and to welcome people with varying different degrees of disabilities. We've invited people who are hearing impaired, some who are sight impaired, some who are wheelchair users, just to help them get a sense of, first, that we value them and that we want them to be more and more part of the life of the church.
This is a day where we say we're going to celebrate every single person, not because you have a disability, but to recognize that you have gifts to give. A disability doesn't define you.
The body of Christ, that's us. We're not complete unless everyone is part of our community. It's a goal, it's a challenge. People with disabilities are equally children of God, brothers and sisters of Christ, and they should be seen as such. They should know themselves as such.
They teach us acceptance. They teach us coping skills. They teach us what we need to give. They tap into us and say, be grateful for what you have. Don't feel sorry for us. Just accept and be willing to go outside of yourself. And so disabled people should not only think that they should offer up their sufferings, because Jesus wants them to do something if they can.
Many of them feel that they stand out if they come to church, but if they look around and they see other people with walkers and canes and wheelchairs, they forget that they have a disability or a handicap or a challenge, and they just act themselves, as they said today. Be yourself and do what you can do, not worry about what you can't do.
My husband usually gives me a clue of when I need to raise my hand and shake it. And people feel awkward, and you'll find that the next time at Mass, they won't sit around me. I don't mean to make it awkward for them, but it can be awkward for me too, being ignored.
Very often we tend to withdraw because we don't want to be different. We don't want to be treated differently, but we want to be accepted like everyone else.
The work of the Holy Spirit is when we try to overcome diversity and try to establish, at least aim for unity.
And that is all for this edition of Currents. Be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a good night.